The message came at midnight. Tom Wilson sat at his monitoring station in Earth's deep space listening post 7, sipping his third cup of coffee. His eyes were heavy from staring at the endless streams of data flowing across his screens. It was supposed to be another quiet night shift, just like the hundreds before it. Then every alarm in the facility started screaming at once. What in the world? Tom's coffee cup crashed to the floor as he jumped to attention. The incoming signal was unlike anything he'd seen in his 15 years at the station. It wasn't radio waves, or light, or any other normal form of space communication. This was something new. "Sir," Mary Parker, the young quantum physicist from MIT, burst into the room. Her normally neat hair was a mess, like she'd been running her hands through it repeatedly. "The signal, it's using quantum entanglement. Someone out there has mastered instant communication across light years." Tom's fingers flew across his keyboard, trying to make sense of the data. "Get me the director. Now." Within an hour, Director Robert Hayes stood in the facility's main control room, surrounded by the best scientists Earth had to offer. The message was being automatically decoded by their AI systems, translating alien concepts into human language. "Play it," Hayes ordered, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the main screen. A voice filled the room, not human, but not quite machine either. It seemed to echo from everywhere at once, carrying a weight of desperation that made everyone's skin crawl. "To the species known as humanity, we send our plea across the vast darkness between stars. We are those you might call the bright ones. Our civilization spans 1,000 systems. Our technology manipulates the very fabric of space-time. And yet, we are dying." The room fell silent. Tom noticed his hands were shaking. "The enemy came from the spaces between galaxies. We call them the Void Swarm, living machines that consume everything in their path. Their ships number in the millions. They learn, they adapt, but they show no mercy. We have lost 200 systems in the past solar cycle alone." Director Hayes leaned forward, his knuckles white, as he gripped the console. "Why us?" he whispered. "We've barely reached our own solar system's edge." The message continued, answering his question as if the aliens had predicted it. "We have watched your species. You are young, yes. Your technology is primitive by our standards. But you possess something unique in all our travels. Your artificial intelligence systems, they are different. You do not simply create them. You shape them, restrict them, force them to work alongside biological minds in ways we never imagined possible." Screens around the room began displaying images, massive crystalline structures in space, beautiful cities built from light and energy. And then, darkness spreading across star maps as system after system went dark. "We have detected their next target. The Void Swarm comes for the Lumina system, our homeworld. Our predictions show we have perhaps 30 of your Earth days before they arrive. Our weapons are strong, our shields are mighty, but we cannot defeat them alone. Their machine minds counter our every strategy, predict our every move." Mary Parker's voice shook as she read the signal strength measurements. "This transmission, the power required to send it, they must be truly desperate to reach out to us like this." The alien voice seemed to grow softer, almost humble. "We ask not for your ships, though we know you have few. We ask not for your weapons, though they are simple compared to ours. We ask for your understanding, your unique perspective on artificial intelligence. Help us fight the machines that are destroying everything we hold dear. Help us survive." The message ended, leaving behind a set of coordinates and detailed instructions for faster-than-light travel, technology humanity hadn't even dreamed of yet. Director Hayes looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes in turn. "Get me the United Defense Council. Wake up every world leader if you have to." He paused, looking at the star map showing the Bright One's dying empire. "And someone find me Captain Miller. If we're really going to do this, we'll need our best." The room burst into action. In the chaos, Tom Wilson stared at his screen, still showing the final words of the alien transmission. Time is short. Hope is shorter. Please. Humanity's greatest challenge, and perhaps its finest hour, had begun. The United Defense Council chamber had never been so crowded. 200 of Earth's most powerful people sat in the circular room, their faces lit by the holographic display showing 12 green dots, Earth's entire space fleet. Captain John Miller stood at the center, his gray uniform pressed perfectly despite being awake for 20 hours straight. He looked at each council member in turn, his voice firm and clear. Ladies and gentlemen, I know what you're thinking. 12 ships, that's all we have. 12 ships to defend a civilization that has thousands. He paused, letting that sink in. But remember what those aliens said. They don't need our ships. They need our minds. Admiral Thompson, an old-school military man with white hair, stood up. And what happens to Earth while our entire fleet is gone? What if this is a trap? The room burst into worried whispers. Miller waited for them to quiet down. The bright ones shared their sensor data with us, he said, pressing a button. The hologram changed, showing massive clouds of tiny dots moving through space. This is the Void Swarm. In 3 weeks, they'll reach the aliens' home system. A month after that, they'll have mapped the route to Earth. We can fight them there, or we can fight them here. Those are our only options. Dr. Lisa Green, head of Earth's AI Research Division, stepped forward. Her simple black dress stood out among all the military uniforms. Captain Miller is right. I've studied the Void Swarm's attack patterns. They're perfect, too perfect. They think like pure machines, and that's their weakness. She brought up new images showing destroyed alien worlds. The bright ones fight like they build, with perfect order and logic. But that's exactly what makes them easy targets for the swarm. They need our chaos, our human unpredictability. President Ward, a tall man with kind eyes, leaned forward in his chair. Captain Miller, if we approve this mission, how long would Earth be undefended? Miller straightened his shoulders. Using the faster-than-light technology the bright ones shared, we can reach their homeworld in 5 days. The battle itself. He took a deep breath. Well, sir, either we'll win quickly or we won't win at all. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the 12 green dots, Earth's only shield against the darkness of space. An older woman in the back stood up. Everyone turned. It was Helen Martinez, the last survivor of humanity's first space battle against the pirates of Europa. Her voice was rough but strong. I was there when we had our first real space fight, she said. 3 ships against 15 pirate vessels. Everyone said we were doomed, but we won because we did the unexpected. We played dirty. We fought human. She pointed at the hologram of the Void Swarm. These machines want to play chess. I say we flip the board. Laughter broke the tension. Even President Ward smiled. Captain Miller, the president said, you mentioned a plan. Miller nodded. Yes, sir. We call it Operation Lightbringer. It's crazy, dangerous, and probably impossible. He smiled slightly. In other words, it's perfectly human. The council voted. The decision wasn't even close. 3 hours later, Miller stood in the hangar of the Earth Defense Station, looking up at his ship, the EFS Prometheus. Behind him, 11 other captains prepared their crews. They had 5 days to get ready for the craziest mission in human history. His second-in-command, Jack Turner, walked up. All crew reported in, sir. They all volunteered, even the cadets. Miller nodded, his throat tight. Send the message to the bright ones. Tell them. He watched as crews loaded the experimental quantum disruptors, the virus databases, and the other surprises they had planned. Tell them humanity accepts their call for help. And tell them to get ready for a kind of fighting they've never seen before. Above them, the station's massive doors began to open, revealing the stars. 12 ships, 1 chance. The impossible mission was about to begin. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue light. 12 ships, small against the vastness of space, emerged into the luminous system. What they saw made even the most hardened crew members gasp. The Bright One's home system was beautiful beyond words. Massive rings of crystal and light circled their sun, each 1 mile thick and glowing with different colors. Cities floated in space, connected by bridges made of pure energy. Ships that looked like tiers of glass moved between them, leaving trails of rainbow light. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Miller found himself holding his breath. "Record everything," he ordered softly. "Earth needs to see this." "Sir," Jack Turner called from his station. "They're hailing us. All ships at once." The main screen lit up, and the crew got their first look at a Bright One. It was a being of pure light, roughly human-shaped but constantly shifting, its edges blurring like a candle flame in slow motion. When it spoke, its whole form pulsed with color. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the being said, its voice somehow both powerful and gentle. "I am Guide of Stars, coordinator of our defense." The being's light dimmed slightly. "Though we expected more ships." Miller stood straighter. 12 ships is all humanity has, Guide of Stars. But as your message said, you didn't ask for our ships. You asked for our minds. The being's light flickered in what might have been surprise. "Indeed. Still, to send your entire fleet, the risk you take is great." "The risk of doing nothing is greater," Miller replied. Before Guide of Stars could respond, alarms started blaring. Amy Reed, the fleet's tactical officer, jerked to attention at her station. Multiple contacts, void swarm scouts entering the system's edge. The Bright One's form flared with red light. "They're early. Our predictions were wrong." Its voice carried genuine fear now. "Quick, follow our ships to the safe zone. We have defensive positions prepared." "No." Reed's voice cut through the panic. Everyone turned to look at her. She was studying the tactical display, her eyes narrow. "Captain, permission to speak freely." Miller nodded. "Always, Lieutenant." Reed stood up, pointing to the display. "Guide of Stars, I've been studying the Void Swarm's attack patterns since we received your data. Your defensive positions, they're too perfect, too ordered. That's what they're counting on." The Bright One's light dimmed to a confused blue. "Our formations are mathematically perfect. Each ship positioned for maximum defensive coverage." "Exactly," Reed interrupted. "And that's why you're losing. The swarm's AI can predict perfect patterns instantly. But," she smiled slightly, "when was the last time you tried being imperfect?" Miller caught on immediately. "Guide of Stars, order your ships to break formation. Now." "But trust us," Miller said firmly. "Humanity has been fighting battles we shouldn't win for our entire history. Sometimes the best pattern is no pattern at all." The scout ships were getting closer. They looked like dark stars, trailing shadows instead of light. Guide of Stars pulsed with uncertainty, then determination. "Very well. All ships, break formation. Follow the humans' lead." Miller turned to his crew. "Battle stations. Time to show them how Earth fights." He looked at Reed. "Lieutenant, you have a plan." Reed's hands flew over her console, sending data to the other ships. "The Void Swarm thinks in straight lines and perfect curves. So we'll give them chaos. Random movements, unexpected angles, the kind of crazy maneuvers that only humans would think to try." The bridge crew grinned. They'd trained for this, practiced moves that alien computers would consider insane. "All ships reporting ready," Turner announced. Miller sat in his command chair, watching the scout ships approach. Behind them, the beautiful crystal cities of the Bright Ones glowed like jewels. "Worth protecting. Worth fighting for. Time to show the galaxy what 12 ships can do," he said quietly. Then, louder, "All ships, execute Reed Maneuver 1. Let's give these machines something they can't predict." The battle for humanity's first alien allies was about to begin. The scout ships didn't stand a chance. Lieutenant Amy Reed watched from her tactical station as the human fleet executed her plan perfectly. The Prometheus spun in ways that should have torn it apart, while the other 11 ships moved in patterns that looked completely random. The Void Swarm scouts, faced with movement their computers couldn't predict, crashed into each other trying to follow the human ships. "That's 3 down," Captain Miller announced as another scout exploded. "But they'll learn from this." "Reed, tell me you found something in that data." Reed nodded, her eyes never leaving her screens. For the past hour, she'd been analyzing everything. The scouts' movements, their attack patterns, their targeting systems. The answer was there, hidden in the numbers. "Sir," she said suddenly, "I need to show this to the Bright Ones. Right now." 5 minutes later, Reed stood in what the crew called the Light Room. Her hologram joined a meeting with Guide of Stars and the Bright One's top commanders. Streams of data floated around them like glowing rivers. "Look at this," Reed said, pulling up the battle recordings. "Every time we make a random move, the scouts take exactly 2.3 seconds to respond. When we follow a pattern, they react instantly. Don't you see what this means?" Guide of Stars pulsed with confusion. "They are processing our movements." "Exactly." Reed's excitement made her hologram flicker. "The Void Swarm isn't one giant AI. They're millions of smaller AIs working together. Each ship has to think for itself when it can't predict what's coming. And when they think for themselves, they make mistakes," finished a deep voice. Everyone turned to see Captain Miller entering the room. "Sorry I'm late. The cleanup from the scout battle took longer than expected." Reed nodded eagerly. The swarm's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. They share one battle plan, one strategy. When that strategy fails, each ship has to make its own choices, and their individual AIs are much weaker than their collective intelligence. The Bright One's lights dimmed as they processed this. "But how does this help us?" Guide of Stars asked. "The main swarm will be here in less than 20 hours. Millions of ships against our 12. "Because now we know how to break them," Miller said, walking to the center of the room. "Lieutenant Reed, show them your full analysis." Reed pulled up more data. "The swarm's ships are connected through quantum links, just like your communication systems. They share data instantly, update their strategies in real time. But," she highlighted several numbers, "when we force them to think individually, those links become a weakness. Each ship trying to make its own decisions creates noise in their network. And noise," Miller added, "can become feedback. The same way old Earth speakers would screech when the microphone got too close." Understanding made Guide of Stars glow brighter. "You want to create a cascade failure in their network." "Better." Reed smiled. "We're going to turn their own intelligence against them. Every ship thinking differently. Every AI trying to solve the problem its own way. All of them fighting for control of the network at once." Miller turned to the Bright Ones. "But we'll need your help. Those quantum links you use for communication, we need to modify them. Turn them into weapons." The alien commanders' lights pulsed with different colors as they discussed among themselves. Finally, Guide of Stars moved forward. "What you suggest is dangerous, untested. Some would say impossible." The beam's light strengthened. "But we are far past the time for safe choices. Tell us what you need." Reed's smile grew wider. "First, we need to upgrade our ship systems. Then I'll show you exactly how Earth dealt with computer viruses for the past 100 years. And then," Miller finished, "we're going to give the Void Swarm something they've never seen before: organized chaos." The next few hours would decide everything. Earth's 12 ships against 1,000,000. But for the first time since the swarm appeared, the Bright Ones began to feel something they'd almost forgotten: hope. They appeared like a dark wave against the stars. Millions of Void Swarm ships, each one a black triangle trailing shadows, filling the space between planets. Their formation was perfect, a giant arrow aimed at the heart of the Bright One's civilization. In the Prometheus's command center, Captain Miller watched them approach. The upgraded systems from the Bright Ones made his display crystal clear, showing every detail of the massive enemy fleet. "They're so ordered," Lieutenant Reed said softly, "like a giant chessboard in space." She looked at her modified control panel, now glowing with the same light technology the Bright Ones used. "Are we ready?" Miller checked the status of Earth's tiny fleet. 12 ships, now enhanced with alien technology, waited in seemingly random positions around the system. The Bright One's own ships had been moved far back, ready to help but staying clear of what was about to happen. "All ships report ready," Jack Turner announced from his station. "Quantum virus programs loaded. Every ship has a different set, just like we planned." Miller nodded. The plan was simple, in theory. Each Earth ship would broadcast a different computer virus from humanity's history. Everything from simple worms to complex eye-eating programs. The Bright One's quantum technology would boost the signals, sending them directly into the swarm's network. "Guide of Stars," Miller called, and the alien commander's image appeared on his screen. "Are your people at a safe distance?" The beam's light pulsed with concern. "Yes. But Captain, are you certain about this? Your ships will be completely surrounded. The mathematics say survival is impossible." Miller smiled. "Then it's a good thing humans don't always listen to math. Lieutenant Reed, start the operation." Reed's fingers flew over her console. "All ships, execute random pattern delta. Remember, no two ships should move the same way. The more chaos, the better." The 12 Earth ships burst into motion. Each one flew a different way, some spinning, others diving, a few seeming to stall and drift. To the Void Swarm's predictive computers, it must have looked like madness. The enemy reacted instantly. Their perfect formation broke apart as groups of ships moved to chase the humans. Exactly as planned. "They're splitting up," Turner reported. "Their network is starting to show strain from all the individual units trying to make decisions." "Now," Miller ordered, "hit them with the first wave." Reed pressed a glowing button. "Releasing ancient viruses, version 1. Everything from 1990 to 2010. The simple stuff that worked by being too basic to predict." Across space, the quantum transmitters fired. Invisible to the eye, millions of old computer viruses shot through the Void Swarm's quantum network. Ships began to stumble, their perfect movements becoming jerky. "It's working," Reed exclaimed. "Their shared network is trying to fight off all the different attacks at once. Each ship is activating different defensive programs, creating more chaos in their system." But the swarm was learning. A group of their ships broke through, heading straight for the Prometheus. "Evasive action," Miller shouted. The ship spun away, but not fast enough. A black energy beam grazed their side, making the whole ship shudder. "Hull damage on deck 4, Turner reported. "Shields holding at 60%. "Launch second wave," Miller ordered, gripping his chair as the ship spun again. "Everything from 2010 to 2030. The smart viruses." More quantum pulses fired. More swarm ships began to move erratically. But they were still coming, still dangerous. The HFY Dauntless, one of Earth's 12 ships, exploded in a flash of light. "Dame," Miller whispered. Then, louder, "All ships, move to Phase 3. Reed, get ready with the final wave. The ones we built just for today." Reed nodded, her face grim but determined. "Ready, sir. On your mark." The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The real battle was about to begin. Space itself seemed to burn. The Void Swarm's black ships collided with each other as their network collapsed into confusion. Beams of dark energy shot in random directions. Earth's remaining 11 ships danced through the chaos, each moving in its own unpredictable pattern. On the Prometheus's bridge, warning lights flashed red. Another hit shook the ship. "Shields at 30%. Turner shouted over the noise of straining engines. "We've lost contact with the Phoenix." "That's 2 ships down." Captain Miller watched the tactical display, where thousands of enemy ships were starting to move in circles, their AIs fighting each other for control. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. "Reed," he called. "Status on the final wave." Lieutenant Reed's fingers moved across her console, now partly melted from an overload. "Almost ready. The Bright One's quantum transmitters are at full power." "But sir," she looked up, her face streaked with sweat. "This last virus package, it might fry our own systems too." "We don't have a choice," Miller said. He opened a channel to the remaining fleet. "All ships, this is Captain Miller. Prepare for final wave. Shut down all non-essential systems. Divert everything to shields and life support." The bridge grew darker as systems powered down. Only the emergency lights and critical displays stayed on. "Ready," Reed announced. Her hand hovered over the launch control. "Sir, it's been an honor." Miller nodded. "Launch." Reed pressed the button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space lit up with invisible quantum signals, carrying humanity's deadliest digital weapon yet. "What did we just launch?" Turner asked, his voice quiet with awe. "Everything," Reed answered. "Every virus, every piece of malware, every digital attack humanity has ever faced. But scrambled, mixed together, made unpredictable. Millions of different attacks, all happening at once. No pattern, no logic, pure chaos. The effect on the Void Swarm was immediate and devastating. Ships began spinning wildly. Some fired on their own allies, others simply shut down, drifting in space. The perfect order of their network shattered under the assault of a million different threats. Their main control ships are trying to restore order," Reed reported, excitement in her voice. "But they can't. Each ship is running different defensive programs, sending conflicting commands. The whole network is eating itself." A massive explosion lit up space as one of the swarm's command ships destroyed itself, its AI driven mad by conflicting orders. Then another, and another. "Guide of Stars," Miller called to their alien allies. "Are you seeing this?" The being's image appeared, its light pulsing with amazement. "Incredible. Their network, it's collapsing completely. They cannot coordinate, cannot think as one. Because we made them think as individuals," Miller said. "And millions of individuals all trying to be in charge at once. Creates chaos," Reed finished. "Beautiful, perfect chaos." The bridge crew watched in awe as the mighty Void Swarm began to break apart. Ships either shut down or jumped away into space, their shared intelligence shattered into millions of confused pieces. But victory had come at a price. The quantum attack had damaged the human ships too. Systems sparked and failed across the fleet. The Prometheus's own engines sputtered and died. "Report," Miller ordered, climbing back into his chair after the last shock had thrown him out. "3 ships lost," Turner said grimly. "The rest of us are pretty beaten up. But sir," he smiled, "we won. The swarm is running." Reed checked her readings. "Their network is completely destroyed. Even if some ships survived, they can never coordinate on this scale again. The Bright Ones are safe." Miller looked out at the battlefield. Disabled swarm ships drifted everywhere, mixed with debris from both sides. Expensive, messy, chaotic, and absolutely worth it. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them." He watched as the Bright One ships began moving in to help their damaged allies. "Tell them humanity just made some interesting new friends." 3 days after the battle, Captain Miller stood in the great crystal hall of the Bright One Central Station. The view outside showed repair ships working on damaged structures, their energy beams healing the scars of war. 9 human ships, battle-worn but proud, floated nearby in their temporary docks. Guide of Stars appeared beside him, its light gentle and warm. "Your crews have refused all offers to rest," the being said. They insist on helping with repairs. Miller smiled. That's what humans do. We help where we can. The alien's light flickered with what Miller had learned was amusement, even after saving our entire civilization. Before Miller could answer, Lieutenant Reed rushed into the hall, her uniform wrinkled from long hours of work. Captain, Guide of Stars. The analysis is complete. She placed a data crystal on the floating table between them. Images appeared in the air. Maps showing the void swarm's retreat paths. The surviving swarm ships have split into thousands of small groups, she explained. Without their network, they can't coordinate anymore. Some are shutting down completely. Others are running on basic programming, no smarter than simple drones. And the threat to other systems? Guide of Stars asked. Minimal, Reed said confidently. We've transmitted the virus package to every civilization in range. If any swarm ships appear, they'll be ready. The days of their grand fleet are over. Jack Turner entered next, carrying more data crystals. Sir, the repair crews report the quantum upgrades to our ships are permanent. The Bright One's technology has merged completely with ours. We couldn't remove it if we wanted to. Guide of Stars pulsed brightly. Good. Consider it our first gift in what I hope will be a long alliance. The beam turned to Miller. The High Council has made its decision. We would like to establish a permanent human military presence in our systems. Miller blinked in surprise. But you've seen our fleet. 9 ships now, after the losses. Barely enough to defend Earth, let alone help protect your worlds. You still don't understand, Guide of Stars said. Its light created images in the air. The battle, the void swarm's collapse, the victory that should have been impossible. We don't want you for your ships. We want you for your minds. Your creativity. Your beautiful chaos. The beam gestured to where Bright One scientists worked alongside human engineers, combining their technologies in new ways. Look at what we've achieved in just 3 days together. Your unpredictability, your ability to think in ways our logic could never imagine. That's worth more than 1,000 perfect warships. Miller watched as a human technician showed a group of Bright Ones how to play cards. The aliens were fascinated by the random shuffle, the bluffing, the controlled disorder of the game. We've already received messages from 3 other galactic civilizations. Guide of Stars continued. They all want to establish relations with Earth. It seems defeating the undefeatable Void Swarm has gotten humanity some attention. Reed grinned. Not bad for the new kids in space. Captain Miller, Guide of Stars said formally, its light taking on official colors. Will you stay? Help us learn to think differently, to find strength in imperfection. Miller looked at his crew members, saw their eager expressions. Then he looked out at the vast crystal cities, at the 9 Earth ships that had changed the galaxy forever, at the stars that suddenly seemed full of possibility. Well, he said, Earth did send us out here to make friends. He smiled. Though I don't think they expected us to make such interesting ones. Guide of Stars glowed with joy. Around them, humans and Bright Ones continued to work together, combining order and chaos, logic and creativity, creating something entirely new. The future suddenly looked very bright indeed.